Let's talk about porn and sex. Did that get your attention? I bet it did. It sure captures mine. As a parent of five, four of whom range from teen to toddler, I have to be ready at a moment's notice for a wide range of topics, including the awkward ones. But you know what? Despite that, the topic of porn and sex is one I enjoy talking about a lot. I know that sounds sus, but let me explain why. I'm Anna Murby, and this is Honest Christian Conversations. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad you are here today. You picked a powerful episode to start with. And if you're returning, thank you for coming back. You know what to expect. Honest and real conversation grounded in truth. I get pumped discussing porn and sex because I struggled with porn addiction for 17 years of my life. God freed me from my addiction in such a significant way that ever since that moment, I have had a heart to see others set free from their own bondage, especially women who are unfortunately moving the needle toward porn addiction no longer being just a man's issue. This has me thinking, why aren't pastors and Christian podcasters discussing porn and sex addiction in a way that includes women? Why are youth groups only going surface level on this topic instead of hitting it head on? And why are parents afraid to have these tough discussions about sex and porn with their children? If that last question made you wince, don't feel bad. I was there too. I already told you, it's awkward for me. This is not an easy subject. And many of us, myself included, we were ill equipped in our own childhoods to have this kind of conversation as parents now. I can't wait to share my guest with you today. Through his rebooted teen program, he helps the next generation and their parents learn the fundamentals of healthy dialogue about hard topics and shaping teen boys into the men of God they need to be. Chris Rogers, a certified porn addiction recovery coach, helps me discuss this taboo topic in honest and vulnerable detail. His heart for seeing the younger generation freed from sexual sin, and my heart for women being set free from the shame they feel for struggling with a man's problem, means this episode is a recipe for sobriety for those who struggle with these addictions and empowerment for parents or grandparents who want to help their loved ones overcome. Are you still unsure about this episode? I get it. Maybe this is too real for you because you aren't ready to face your own or your loved one's struggle with porn or sex addiction head on. Yet, I have a solution for you. Go into the show notes, click the Retrain Your Brain series link, and let's tackle this one day at a time, at your own pace, with a special podcast I created just for you. No pressure, only encouragement and freedom. Whether this intro is making you squirm right now or getting you excited to hear more, you are in the right place at the right time. Let's start the conversation. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. This is going to be a very interesting topic that we have to discuss pornography and how the church is not doing their job as discipling the people, shepherding the people in the right direction. They are avoiding this very glaring topic that is also starting to affect women, not just men. And nobody is talking about it except for us today. That is what we will be talking about. I am
Let's
so
do it.
excited. And that sounds weird, but I am excited to talk about pornography, everything that we can, learning about it from a men's perspective, from a woman's perspective, since
Mhm.
everyone in my audience who listens for more than just this episode, if you're new, welcome. But I had a pornography addiction for 17 years. So we've got the male and the female perspective today, which is awesome. I am so pumped to talk to you. When you reached out, as soon as I saw that you were a former public school teacher, a worship leader, and now you are a porn recovery coach, and you help parents who are trying to train their young teen boys to become men of God. I love that. Absolutely love that. I knew I had to have you on. So I'm going to stop talking and you're going to start talking and share with us how you got into that because I know that you also had an addiction to pornography.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really stoked to hear your perspective and a bit of your story as well. And seriously, thank you very much for having me and giving me the platform. I am a porn and sex addiction recovery coach. I have a couple programs that I'm very, very proud of. One of which you alluded to is the Rebooted Teen Parent Program, where, yeah, I walk parents by the hand as far as kind of addressing the reality of where we're at in 2026 with the boom of technology and social media and AI, but we also talk about the importance of things like mindfulness and what I like to call the culture of curiosity. But what I also am the head coach of is what's called the Rebooted Teen program. So, given my experience as a teacher, this is my crew, this is my gang, this is my demographic. And as far as being able to, sure, break down some information as far as how something like porn affects the brain, but also, what I believe this generation is really, really calling for and yearning for is a sense of authenticity. Because I
Mhm.
could rattle off a whole bunch of information at you, but for my money, the cliche rings true. People won't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
We can just kind of knowledge and information them to death, kind of like bludgeon them in the head with, a whole bunch of facts. But really, if that were enough to take someone out of an unhealthy cycle, then maybe none of us would need coaching or, counseling of any kind. We would just be cured just like that. When really what we're working with is, a human issue. It's
Mhm.
it's deeper below the surface. A big thing that I talk about and a big thing that I help clients come to understand for themselves that it's not the thing, it's the place from which it's coming from. What is that inner wound? What's that inner
Mm.
thing that we might be trying to escape, something we're uncomfortable with, or trying to run away from or medicate through this particular behavior? And that's mostly what we try to focus on. How is the internal world kind of painting and coloring the external world, right? So that's a little bit of what I do, but as far as how I got into this field goes, like you said, I spent most of my professional life as a teacher. I was in New York City. I was a music teacher for a long time. And, behind closed doors, I had a problem. Just to make a very long story short, you name the thing, I've done the thing, and Imma
Mm.
leave it at that.
Mhm.
What started off as a teenager as just innocent curiosity, like, "What is this?" Unfortunately escalated into things that looks like fairly risky behaviors.
Yeah.
And I found a program that radically shaped my life, not even trying to be over the top. My heart and my mission now is to take that teaching skill set, being able to communicate effectively enough and break down info, but also it's an opportunity to, again, like, sit alongside somebody and just be like, "Hey, man, like, I've been there as well. Hope is possible," as it's written, "When two or more are gathered, there he is in the midst of us," right? So I want to be that sort of instigator as far as involving a sense of community goes and kind of spark some conversations rather than choose isolation and sweep some stuff under the rug. And I'm sure we'll get into that. I mean, there's wonderful people that I've met in my church that have been fatherly figures and just people that have the patience and the emotional stability to, handle a tough conversation. But, I think there's definitely a stigma around something like not simply pornography, but around the topic of sex in general, when in
Mhm.
reality it's a part of life and we can only pretend it doesn't exist for so long.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, let's go up on the altar and just start, "All right, everybody open up your search history." Like, I'm not, but,
Yeah. No,
we
I
can
get
only
it.
sweep it under the rug for so long. But all
Yeah.
that to say, that was a very long-winded intro, but,
No,
that's my heart.
it's
That's a bit of
fine,
where I
it's
come from.
fine. Usually, people who have an addiction to pornography or a sexual addiction, they tend to have had some sort of abuse in their younger years. Was that the story for you? Or because I know you said you came upon it.
Mhm.
but I didn't know how. And you can share as much or as little as you want. I was just
Sure.
that's my first question.
No, I appreciate it. So the term abuse, I want to be tactful with because, I don't want to, use it kind of frivolously. And it
Mhm.
can mean a bunch of different things. But I will say the clients that I've spoken to, it is a fairly common tale, as far
Mhm.
as, let's put it this way, their introduction to sex was done against their will.
Mm.
And therefore kind of shifting their reality and kind of quote unquote teaching them that this is what sexuality is.
Yeah.
This is just what it looks like. This is what life is like. And a lot of the recovery process involves a lot of unlearning and a lot of untangling yourself from, unhealthy conditioning
Mhm.
and, introduce you to not just, a new perspective, but an overall, new and fresh lifestyle. But in my own experience, while thankfully I haven't had as tragic and traumatic an experience like that, I can, at least as far as, how I quote unquote discovered, pornography. Again, it was a pop up on the family computer, before we all had
The
smartphones and had our
stupid
own.
pop-ups. Yeah.
Those pop ups get you, man. Uh,
Yep. Or just as my mom did once, I actually shared my story, and I've shared it on several podcasts, but one part of my story, not exactly how I came upon it, but probably more how I came upon actual pornography, is my mom was trying to type in one word and she misspelled it by one letter and something popped
mm,
up and she freaked out and I caught a glimpse, like, not that long, but it was enough to be in my brain, "Ooh, what's that?" But
right.
that wasn't even my first encounter, but continue. I just that made me think of that.
Blast you back.
Mhm,
But no, but all that is to say, again, what started off as just that same thing. What is this?
mhm.
And there was a lot of secrecy. There was a lot of hush hushness about it. It's like, at least in my household, and God bless my parents at the time, I understand that they did the best they could when it came to protecting me from certain things.
Did
But
you grow up in a Christian home?
I did. Yeah,
Mm,
both my
yep,
parents,
me too.
grew up and, they have angelic voices, they grew up kind of, like, being the faces of the franchise when it came to my church choir and stuff, but, as much as I did grow up in a Christian home, my parents did get divorced,
Mhm,
and
mine too.
yeah, so
That my parents sheltered me from a lot of the things, like, everything you were saying about they didn't talk about this, it wasn't talked about, I can relate. I didn't have anyone explaining things to me, so
yeah, and I think that is fairly a common tale, and because of that, there almost became this almost mystical quality. It's like, "Don't do
Mhm.
XYZ." Then naturally, you're sort of just like, "Why?"
Yeah.
You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep, yep, curiosity. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it starts there for most people, at least it's a very common tale within the clients that I
Mhm.
speak to, and really what I try to help people understand is that if there's going to be a conversation about something like sex or pornography, it doesn't have to be weird.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's again, when it comes to something like sex, porn, we can get a little more nuanced, but building our way there, let's start with something like sex, right? It's something that exists. Now, you
Yeah.
can call it the birds and the bees, you can call it this, that, and the third. As far as an overall rule of thumb, if you're going to be weird about it, they're probably going to end up feeling weird about it. So, as
Mhm.
far as being the initiator of the conversation, if you're a parent or guardian or caregiver, oftentimes there is a bit of a need for the release of shame on our own end. Because when it comes to your children looking at you, especially in their younger into formative years, a whole ton of it is monkey see, monkey do.
Mm.
As soon as you think they're not listening, as soon as you think they're not paying attention, they're keeping their eye on you like, "Huh, I noticed that mom and dad, they treat each other this way. Oh, okay, that's just how to do it. Oh, I noticed that whenever a conversation around this sort of topic, it could be anything like money. There's like a lot of tension that builds. Oh, money equals fear. That's just a
Mm.
lesson that's learned.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
if you're gonna approach it with this sort of like tiptoe, look for the mines in the minefield, really just it's when I mention this overall idea, like the culture of curiosity, like there's a story that I often go to. I was at a family party, this was like a year or 2 ago, and my cousin, like she knows what I do. He has a 9-year-old son, he was 9 at the time. He was like, "Yeah, my son, I caught them kinda like looking at some things on the internet. Can you talk to them?"
Yeah.
It's in the middle of a family party. Now So I pull him aside, we grab a table, and we grab some seats, right? I'm just like, "Yeah, mom was telling me you were, checking some things out." Now, immediately right off the bat, her son's first thought was like, tail between the legs, "Oh, I'm in trouble." When I'm just like, "Well, no, 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 no." I'm just like, "What were you checking out? What was going on?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's like porn and stuff." And I was like, "Huh, okay. Like, what is that?" Like,
Mm,
kinda playing dumb in a way, getting a feel for what they know already. Like,
mm,
what does it make them feel? Like, having the answers truly kinda come from them. Again, it's not just the behavior itself, it's not just the thing they're being exposed to, although we'll get to that. One thing that I truly want to encourage people as far as an overall attitude and approach is choose your target wisely. Again, it's not the thing, it's the place from which it's coming from, you know? We don't necessarily need to fix, porn. It's what's the thing that is sort of like the internal magnet that would like pull us toward a
mhm.
particularly unhealthy behavior.
Yeah.
That's the target, you know?
Yeah.
So he was like, "Yeah, it was like porn and stuff." "Oh, what is that?" "Oh, it's like, it's like sex or whatever." It's like, "Oh, okay, sex. Like what is that?" "How does that make you feel when you watch that?" And
Mhm.
not looking for an answer, just genuinely like, "Oh, it makes me like I don't know, it excites me or whatever." I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, I understand. To be feeling that particular way, particularly as a growing boy who will one day become a man, feeling those types of things are part of the package. They're not
Mhm.
going anywhere. Like,
Yeah.
clients ask me, "Hey, Chris, how do I get rid of urges?" I'm like,
Mhm.
"Brother,
You
as soon as you figure
can't.
that one out."
That's funny.
You know?
Poor things.
You know? But there's, of course, the difference between feeling that natural human sexual desire and lust. It's like
Mhm.
one is healthy and part of the package, and one is the fixation on it.
Yeah. It's
That
where
w
self-control comes into play, yeah.
Exactly. So it's really kind of separating the 2 because just because you're having a sexual urge or thought or feeling, they're not synonyms. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? And I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes a lot of the conversations that are had, they kinda put both on the same pedestal. It's like if you're having a sexual feeling or thought at all, you're sinning just by
Mhm.
experiencing that. And
Yeah.
we do dive into, ways to, develop self-control so that way whatever feeling we have, they're not driving the car, right?
Mhm.
We remain in control. We talk about practical ways to do that. But the fact that you're feeling it at all, like, we gotta just, really separate the difference between healthy human sexual feelings and lust. So really starting there, that the fact you're feeling this isn't bad, but yeah, it's just something to be aware of and something to expect. Especially as a man speaking to a growing man, I put it on myself as part of my role to be like, "Hey man, I've seen this movie before. Like this is
Yeah.
this is what to expect. These are where the jump scares happen. This is what to prep
Mhm.
for, and this is what to do." So, anyway, I know I'm sharing a whole ton. I appreciate you listening, but
No, it's very interesting, very helpful, and it makes me realize even more that I did not handle the situation with my son very well when, he was in 5th grade, and I've shared this story before, but I I caught him looking at something. Long story short, God helped me find out that he was doing that. Praise God. It was after like only 1 time or 2 times.
Mhm.
But he had a very terrible friend who told him about 2 videos on YouTube, and he had watched those. And I flipped my gourd because coming from having a major addiction to it for 17 years, I didn't handle it very well. He
Okay.
was crying, I was crying, I snapped,
Mhm.
I explained to him why I was upset. I told him about my addiction, how it affected
Wow.
me. Like, I just was honest with
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
and I told him, "I still love you. I will always love you." But I was extremely emotional. So,
Which I wanna give you grace for, you know? I don't think you necessarily did anything wrong. You were honest and you reacted, but you realized where it came from,
yeah.
which is what a lot of people won't do. So,
Mhm.
good on you for kinda, like, picking up on that. So that's really, really key.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it is definitely very important that when we see our kids doing this or we catch them doing something, that we don't make them feel like the worst person ever. They probably already feel a lot of guilt, shame, and embarrassment because you actually caught them doing something or watching
Yeah.
something. I don't think adding on our embarrassment, our shame that we're feeling because our child is looking at this stuff
Mhm.
is very helpful to them. And it brings back to what you were saying about monkey see, monkey do. They see how we react to this. So therefore, they're going to be like, oh, okay, so this is bad. This is awful. This is evil. I can't do this. I
Right.
don't know why, but I'm not supposed to do this because this is the reaction I'm going to get when people hear about it. And I
Yeah.
think that's why a lot of people have a lot of guilt and shame and they hide it and they don't want people to know because that's the reaction you usually get when someone says, "Oh, I have an addiction to pornography." You just get this big, "Oh no, like that's disgusting. How could
Mhm.
you? You awful thing, you." And
Yeah.
it's like, well, look internally at your own heart. The Bible clearly says that if you look at someone with the intent of lust, you're sinning. So he's not saying those who look at pornography, he's saying those who do that, you're already sinning, you're already committing adultery. So that leads me to believe that we all have the capability of doing that. You don't have to actually be looking at porn to have those lustful feelings. And it's like you said, there's a difference between lust and what we're supposed to have. He created us to procreate. You can't do that if you have no desire to do that.
No.
So, of course, we have those desires that he has for us to have, but we have to have the self-control to overcome and not let it get to the lust. So I've soaked in everything you're saying. I absolutely agree. I love it. And yeah, as a parent of 5 kids, this is a situation that is very difficult for me. I did not do things well when my oldest was home. And then like I mentioned my son, he had a douchey friend who told him about websites. He woulda never I mean, he probably would have being in junior high and high school. We can't be naive about what they are
Right.
hearing or not.
Exactly.
And that's what I learned, especially after that subject. I kind of already knew it because I'm not dumb, but after that situation, that's when I realized I can't be naive about what they know already,
Mhm.
and I also have to get over my own anxieties about having these kind of conversations.
Mm.
Because I also grew up in a family where we didn't discuss these things, and if we did, we used silly words. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Scrubs, but one of the old doctors used to make fun of the blonde nurse, I forget what her name was, because she'd call lady parts hoo-ha and all this other stuff, like, she just gave them silly names because she just couldn't say it. And I resonated so much with that and laughed at it because of how stupid it is, but at the same time, I was that person.
Right.
That was me up
Mm.
until this situation with my son, and I'm like, "I can't be that anymore."
Mm.
Because if something happens to them, they have to be able to have a conversation with me, "Hey, so and so did this to me," or "This happened to me at school," or "Someone asked me about this, and I don't know what it is." I wanted them to feel comfortable to be able to come to me and have those conversations. And in order for that, I had to suck up whatever discomfort I had from never having those conversations. It's gotten a lot easier, and I will just of my daughters, my youngest ones are trying to come up with some code name for things. I was like, "No, call it what it is. This is what it is." And it's still
Right.
weird for me to say it, but it's necessary, and I know how necessary it is. So, yeah, we as parents need to be there for our children. We need to be mature and handle things in a more mature way. And if we can't do it on our own, we need to have people help us. We need to pray and ask God to help us because it's not easy to have these conversations, especially because they might actually know more than you because if they're in public school. I mean, my son has asked me questions that I never would have asked my parents back in the day because those were things that were never gonna come up. Transgender this, why
Right.
is there a dude wearing a dress at my school? Like,
Right.
these were just well, I went to a Christian school, so really wouldn't have happened,
Right.
but,
I get it.
even that happens at Christian schools now, they talk about these things, so they know more than we think they do, or we're just being naive if we don't believe that. Even if they go to a Christian school, they know things. They're hearing things, they're finding
Yeah.
things out. What tips do you have for parents who are either actually naive to what their kids might know, even if they feel they've sheltered them enough,
Mm,
or they are just pretending like they're naive because they really want to keep their kids safe, so they're pretending like they just, "Oh, my kids don't know these things," and
mm.
but they actually do.
Yeah,
What tips?
I will go as far as saying they do. They know.
Mhm.
You know, the internet is a big place, and if you have access to it, understand that you have access not just to, YouTube and a couple of clicker games. You have access to all of the information that, has ever been documented essentially. So with that, with unfiltered access to all the information that all the world has ever had, they have probably heard some things that, like you said, you would have never brought up to your parents or stuff you would have never even known existed. And but that's not it doesn't need to give you a reason to freak out, sound the alarm, and blow every whistle, and everything down that line. Again, the trick is to instill that culture of curiosity. We can talk about the things that they're seeing, we can talk about the things that they're watching, or perhaps things that have been exposed to them, but how does it feel? Like when you are watching that, get to know the heart of the situation. The goal of a lot of these types of conversations, I would truly, truly suggest, is to instill, yes, that culture of curiosity, but truly that culture of discernment. Like,
Mm.
what do you actually want? Like, who are you? The Bible talks about, who you're designed to be. If you're made in his image, your body is a temple. Who are you? And what do you actually want? And do these types of behaviors and these types of things align with that? So by the time you have an inclination to act out in a certain way or go down a certain road or hang out with a certain person, could be anything, do you have that skill of discernment to be able to pick apart one voice that comes from the essence of you or something that deviates from it? It's like you can
Mm.
start to look at decisions sort of like a crossroad. Like one is leading you down a road you've been called to go down, and the other is leading you in an opposite direction. Because we can talk about filters, we can talk about blockers, we can talk about limiters, and we talk
They
about
can probably figure out how to get around those anyway.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are
I could. That's how nobody knew I had it. I knew how to delete my browser history, how to
mhm.
make it look like I wasn't anywhere. I
Course.
mean, yeah, you can figure this out if you really want to.
Oh,
So,
yeah. It's
yeah.
truly not that difficult, but it truly calls to mind the biggest lesson of all. The biggest filter that your child will ever have is going to be themselves.
Mm, mm.
What do you teach and what do you encourage? Let's say when they go off to somewhere like college, right? When they leave the home eventually. Do they have the skills necessary for that sense of, yes, curiosity, but discernment? When they're kinda like living unfiltered, when they have, like, devices around them that don't have the blocker on them or don't have
Mm,
the filter of some kind on them, do they have the wherewithal and the community to lean on that can help them out? Do they
yeah.
have that clear distinction of what they want and the skill of being able to make decisions based on that.
Mm.
And in the program, we talk about, like, for example, just to kinda, like, give one brief little coaching exercise, one of my favorite tools of all time is something called dialoguing. So, how it works, just to give a brief example, it's really, really fun, actually. It's a journaling exercise. So, basically what you do is you take out a notebook, you take out a pencil or pen, and you essentially script out a conversation between yourself and what, um, a counselor who wrote this book called Breaking the Cycle, George Collins, really easy read, but awesome, awesome information. He calls a sub-personality. So it's a
Mhm.
part of your personality. So let's talk about what he might call your addict self. So there's you over here, and there's your addict self, right? So you essentially write out a conversation between yourself and your addict sub-personality. It's like you
Mhm.
say something, and then they say something. It's literally like you're writing out like lines in a movie script, essentially.
Mhm.
It's like hence like a dialogue between 2 characters, right?
Yeah.
You're over here, you say something, they're over there, they say something, and you go back and forth, and you speak from both perspectives. Now, just from that one example, just from that one sort of dialoguing exercise, what does that prove? A couple of things. 1, you're over here and it is over here. So therefore, you are not this subpersonality. You are not this feeling. You're not this thought, and it is not you. You
Mm.
separate yourself from it, not in a sense of like, let me, distract myself with something so I don't have to feel it, or let me just shame it away, or let me just, do something else where I don't have to feel it, or let me numb it in some way. You're separating yourself from it from really a sense of compassion, truly from a sense of compassion. It's like, okay, this is a part of me. It's not the
Mhm.
entirety of me. It's just a part of me that wants something. It's like another way to think about it is like a subpersonality can be someone knocking on the door, like after you've had a long day of school or a long day of work, whatever fits, right? And you answer the door, you're tired, you're groggy, you don't want to talk to anybody, but you open up the door and you see the person at the door, and it's someone that you're not a super big fan of. So whoever just popped into your head, that's who's at the door right now. Like, okay. So you got 2 options, right? You can either like, "Hey, good to see you. Bye," slam the door in their face, or you can let them in at least for a little while and ask why they came to visit you at all.
Mhm.
Dialoguing is about choosing that option. You
Mhm.
let them in for a while, have a brief conversation. What's on your mind? What do you want? And you give them the opportunity to say their piece. And because you're writing from their perspective, that's a way of processing that particular feeling. That's a
Hmm.
way of letting it pass. You're literally validating its existence by one, giving it a name. That's where you can have some fun with it. You can like literally give it a name and you're giving it a voice. You're giving it the chance to speak. It's your nervous system trying to tell you something. So
Yeah.
you're letting it process, you're letting it speak, and you go back and forth. You have that conversation. One great way to kind of keep that conversation going is simply ask it questions. What do you want? Why do you want this so badly? And you go back and forth. And however long the dialogue, however long the conversation goes on, it can be really, really healthy. But here's the best part, because it's your house, in that house example, you have the final say to when it's time for them to leave,
Mm.
right? So you
Mhm.
take the power back. You not only separate yourself from that feeling or urge or thought pattern from a sense of compassion, but you also remind yourself who has the final choice, and
Mm.
that's you. You are in charge of your decision making. It can be a really, really empowering exercise, but just from that one tool alone, there's a lot of different exercises that sort of branch off of that one idea. What's going on internally to the point where it's affecting me externally?
Yeah.
So, with all of that being said, those are the types of skills that I would encourage parents and caregivers to encourage and teach. And you can make it fun, you can gamify it. And we talk about this more in the program, but that could be a fun place to start.
Yeah. I love that. That's actually very insightful, and the imagery of someone knocking at your door, I feel like I feel like a horrible person because what came to mind
Someone
was
immediately
Jehovah's Witness. And I'm like, "Oh," because I have this woman who does come over, and she's very sweet and kind, but she always comes when I can't actually talk.
Mm,
And a lot of times I wonder, does she think I'm just saying that? I
mm.
legit can't talk whenever she comes, but that's what I thought about. I was like, "I'm a horrible person." But I talk to her. I do when I'm able to, even if it's like 5 minutes, but we still talk. But I do love that analogy completely, and it makes sense in this idea as well, and I think it can work for any addiction,
Yeah,
really, and for anything, not even what we would consider addictions, but anger, sadness, all these different things. Like, it's just a very powerful tool for
absolutely.
helping you understand deep feelings of why you're feeling this way.
Yeah, in this type of work, going back and forth with that particular sub-personality, that particular part of you, it's a great place to start, but like you said, once you kinda get more used to this type of exercise, you can start to make it much more nuanced. Have a
Mhm.
conversation with your anxious side. Have a conversation with your overwhelmed side. If you experience, like, states of depression, like, have a conversation with it. Get curious. Let it process, because the more we sorta distract ourselves from a particular feeling or urge or thought pattern, whatever it is, that's where like anxiety, angst, tension piles up.
Mhm.
This is where like that thing in our stomach, like we're doing something bad. We're not letting certain things process. It's like your nervous system is sort of like freezing over time.
Mm.
And with that release, there's that sense of like, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to your point, you can really make a exercise like that much more specific. Yeah,
I love
I
it.
could totally geek out on that, but,
I
yeah,
I could see why. It's an amazing tool, and it just seems so simple. It probably isn't when you first start because you probably feel a little weird, you're talking to yourself, but
yeah,
we all do it anyways. We
right,
all talk to ourselves, so why not get real with yourself and be honest with yourself? When you were talking about how, if you don't let those things out that you're thinking, I guess, dark thoughts, it
mhm,
reminds me of Dexter. I used to watch that show back in the day, and his dad taught him how to handle the dark thoughts. In
mm,
my opinion, he didn't teach him how to do it right because he was murdering, but we won't go
yeah,
there.
yeah,
But
yeah,
he was trying to help him harness that into a more quote unquote healthy way, and that's what we need to do with our dark thoughts. We can't dismiss them because, as you mentioned, you can only do that for so long before they come out somehow in some way that is unhealthy. It reminds me of when I used to bottle up all my anger. I was
mm,
a very big people pleaser when I was younger. I didn't wanna hurt anybody, so I didn't make waves. Everything just got shoved into a bottle until that bottle was full, and what are you gonna do? You can't shove anything else in there, so it just explodes on some random person who just asked me, "Did you want pickles on that?" And it's like, "No, I hate pickles. How could you not know? Stupid McDonald's worker." And it's like they're just
fair
doing their
call,
job. They
yeah,
wouldn't know that I don't like pickles, but because I've been shoving down all this random stuff forever, I just lashed out at them, and I hated doing that, and I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know what to do, and
mm,
anger happened to be one of my triggers for why I looked at pornography. So if I had had this tool, this mindset of you can talk to that, it's not wrong to have these feelings, you just need to figure out why they are so significant to
right,
you.
yeah,
I never had anyone to ask me those questions. I never asked those questions. I was just like, "I can't have these. I don't want people to know that I have this stuff, so I need to hide it." And because of that, I had a 17-year addiction. I was a miserable person to be around. I didn't even wanna be around me because I didn't know who me was. I was too busy being me to everybody else.
wow,
So, yeah, I absolutely think that this is a transformative idea. I know you've got other ideas on how parents can help their children, but let's also talk about how, if you're personally dealing with a pornography addiction,
mhm,
what other tips do you have for them on how to handle it? Because I think it's different when you're teaching a parent how to help their child, or when you're helping a teen yourself, you're helping them, but how do you approach it with an adult where you're the adult, they're an adult, you can have that adult conversation together?
100%. The biggest thing to start off with is, what do you want? It sounds like a simple question, but it's like, what do you want? Why are you here? Let's say, like, you're my client, you're here for a reason, I pretty much ask you, like, "Well, do you want this?" Like, do you
Mhm,
want to do away with whether it's, porn or, other compulsive sexual behavior? Like, do you want that? Okay,
mm,
cool. So, if yes, what does that life look like for you? So, in which case, we know what you don't want. What do you want? Because the system that I wanna help provide is accountability and a system that makes you getting there as streamlined as possible. Because we're not just trying to put the problem on a pedestal, we're trying to shine a spotlight on the solution. Like,
mhm,
that's what real recovery is all about. There's gonna be a hustle either way, there's gonna be work involved, but the hustle isn't simply you running away from a particular behavior, but running toward that thing that you say that you want. And my
yeah,
role as a coach is to give you the tips, tools, and techniques to help get you there. So that's how we would work. What is it going to take? And have it come from you. And from that point on, it's us coming up with a system, a structure, and you delving into community to sure motivate you and encourage you and pick you up if you're down. But yeah, like really starting off with the mindset that slips aren't failure.
mm,
Not a This might be a little controversial, but I'm not a big fan of the overall model that a slip means you go back to day 1. I don't personally abide by that.
mhm,
It's data. It's information. It's an opportunity for you to learn about yourself, your triggers. I don't really care how long it's been since the last time you had a slip. It could be a day, it could be a week, it could be years. Being able to do away with a particularly unhealthy behavior for a long time is a feat and absolutely deserves to be celebrated.
yeah,
But are you actually recovering or are you only
mm,
sober? Because in mainstream recovery speak, we kind of put the term sobriety and recovery kind of on the same pedestal when one has to do with the other, but they're not mutually exclusive. Does that make sense?
mhm,
So just to
yeah,
break that down. So sobriety is the term that's often used where we're not drinking anymore. We're not using a
yeah,
particular drug. We're not engaging in a particularly compulsive activity, right? We're not doing that thing anymore. We're free
yeah,
from it. We're sober from it, right? Now, recovery. Now that's the key word. What is the thing that needs to be recovered? What's the thing that needs to be healed?
mm,
That's the internal stuff. So, sobriety or doing away with a particular behavior, it's an important piece of the puzzle, but it's just one piece. You know what I'm saying? It's just
mhm,
one piece of the overall puzzle. Some of the other pieces include that curiosity, that discernment, the community, the discipline aspect, the communal aspect. It's other pieces that eventually form that image of the person that you actually want to be.
mm,
So, how do you start off with a client that is dealing with a compulsive behavior? You start off with pretty much outlining that. We're going to talk about different tools and tips that you can do in the moment to get yourself out of a jam. We're going to start nice and basic, but long term, it takes statistically about a year and a half, 2 years for the brain to fully rewire. We're not just dealing with a behavioral modification here. We're dealing with a lifestyle change. We're dealing with an identity change. You know, it's like we've conditioned ourselves for so long to be like, okay, if I'm feeling X, then I do Y.
mhm,
That's been the formula we've been following.
yeah,
And the solution isn't, okay, from now on, if I feel X, then I do Z. It's just like, I'm feeling X, and that's okay. I'm not necessarily bad for feeling X, but understanding that I have the tools to process it in a particular way so that I can feel this thing without letting it dictate my decision making.
mm,
I can feel this particular thing without it becoming an overall hindrance toward the person that I actually want to be. I have a community that I can lean on and I can trust and verbalize these ideas to. I have a coach that I can lean on. And it starts there. It's not this isn't like a replacement behavior group.
Replacement behavior doesn't help because if you already are addicted to something and you try to retrain your brain with that thing, I think you can well, it's happened to me, you can transfer that addiction to something else. And
Mhm.
it may be not as bad as, whatever it was you were addicted to, but it's still you're creating a new one rather than, like you said, getting to the heart of it, recovering, not just you're just creating something new. That's what I did. I
Yeah.
got sucked into eating and then I got sucked into working out and after a while, I couldn't work out anymore, I kept getting hurt. I'm like, "Okay, now what do I do?" God's like, "Finally,
Yeah.
we can recover then." It's like,
That's what it is.
"Okay."
And
Yeah.
honestly, it's in the church, it's probably like Christianese, but honestly, it's those breakdowns that leads to one's breakthrough. It's like here we
Mhm.
are literally running away from a particular thing, maybe in your case, literally running,
Yeah.
dodging, but like once you hurt yourself, it's sort of like you're slowed down and you kinda have no choice but to kinda like be with yourself for a while, and that's when you said, "Oh, I can finally recover. I can finally
Yeah.
process some stuff and be with it," and that's all it wants. That's so good. Conversations that I've heard and ones that I've been a part of in a church environment, I heard this amazing thing that a pastor said one time where the enemy will oftentimes make its way to you through your wants. And
Mhm.
I wanna break down what that means. So, through your wants. So it's like, I want to be validated. I wanna feel happy. I wanna feel a part of something. I wanna feel sexy. I wanna feel attractive to somebody. I wanna feel like I'm connected to somebody. Okay, here's this thing called pornography,
Mm.
you know? Oh, I wanna feel, successful. I wanna take the edge off. I wanna feel like I'm free of responsibilities. Okay, here's something called alcohol. Here's something
Mm.
called this particular vice. The enemy will make its way to you through your wants. But
Yep.
when we release ourselves from those particular wants, as far as our emotional attachment to them, to the point we cling on to it so that we're identifying intimately with it, when we release that and put it before his altar, it's like, I mean, literally, how does Psalm 23 start? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not
Want.
want.
Mhm.
I'm free from my attachment to want. Because in this moment, in this relationship, I have everything I need,
Mm.
you know? It really
Mhm.
kinda gets to the core. So, once that concept hit, I was like,
Yeah.
because yeah,
That's what's happening to my mind right now. That is brilliant and so very helpful in so many different ways, not just with the pornography addiction, but for the one who's listening right now and they're feeling this in their soul that they have a problem with connecting with the bad things that they think and they feel shame and guilt because of it and they don't know how to get rid of it. You've just given them some very solid ways to help work through that, not just get rid of it until the next one comes
mm,
or distractions, as you mentioned. This world is full of distractions, and we don't need any distractions. We need to sometimes slow down
yes,
and focus on what it is so that it won't become a problem next time. I'm always telling my kids, if you don't like having to hear me say this over and over again, I don't like having to say it over and over again. So if you don't want to have this conversation again, learn what I'm telling you now and implement that so that this doesn't have to come up again another time. But if you don't learn from it, then don't be surprised when we have to have this same conversation again. And it's the same thing with us. That's what God is telling us. If you don't want to have to keep dealing with this addiction, do this. Work through this. Let's fix this problem, not just put a band aid on it until the next time.
right,
That's not going to help anything. And
yeah.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying. It's absolutely so helpful, so freeing, and I know the audience is taking notes.
Alright.
They better be. You better be taking notes. If you aren't taking notes, you're gonna have to listen to this again and take notes.
That's
These are
right.
good things. You can't ignore this. We all have something that we can work through. You may not have an addiction like we had of pornography or sex or alcohol or drugs. There's many things you can be addicted to. It's been discussed through this whole season so far. So we've all had something that we are addicted to. And these are tools that not only help for pornography or for helping your kids through that, it can help in any type of situation you're going through. So there is really no excuse at this point for you to feel alone and like you can't do this, you can't overcome this negative thing or whatever. Chris has given us many opportunities to write stuff down and practice and implement it, which I will definitely be working on and helping
Nice.
my kids do as well. So, you too, who's listening, you need to be doing this as well. We are not in this alone. We are in this together. And that is what this podcast is for community and helping each other through. So if you need prayer at all during this time, I am here for you. Go to honestchristianconversations.com/contact and let me know what you need help with because I don't want to see you suffer anymore. This life is short and we don't need to suffer alone. So yeah, if you need help, I'm here for you. Chris, let's transition a little bit and talk about how the church can do better with
Sure.
this subject in helping parents with their kids who are dealing with it and just help get rid of the stigma that the church seems to have around this topic.
Sure. In a sentence, if you lead with shame, they will stay the same.
Oh, I love it. Put it on a t-shirt.
Put it on a bumper. No, but this kinda goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of our conversation. Perhaps a lot of our experiences, and I think it might be common for your listeners too, around something like porn or sex, it's a lot of, like, just no. Just kind of
Mhm.
like a big do not enter sign, right? But again, there's that balance between like, this is what's going on and let's be solutions oriented. We're not going to go into panic zone. We're going to remind ourselves that no matter what's going on, our God is bigger. So let's not choose the anxiety route. Let's not get up in arms. Like let's just be solutions oriented. Yes and amen. So what do you do? So as far as from my perspective, one, be aware of what your children are being exposed to. From my experience as a teacher, I had a very interesting experience working as a teacher in the middle of the pandemic. Here we are. I mean, of course, here we are now speaking through a screen. But when we were doing school online for a while,
Mhm.
because I used to teach high school, middle school, but I also taught elementary school too,
Mhm.
ran the whole gamut. And I noticed how that period of isolation and dependency on a screen affected my young ones.
Mm.
Because by the time we started getting back into the building and stuff, let's say my students as young as kindergarten, when we came back to the building, they were going into 2nd grade. But socially, they were still very much in kindergarten. Here we are trying to do our best with all the positive intentions in the world. There's more to the world than just your screen. Hey, put your screen down, touch grass, put some time away. It might not compute because we gotta keep in mind what was their experience during that time. It's like, here's everything that they could ever want. What were some of the lessons that were taught during that period of time? Alright, here's where school is going to be. Here's where your entertainment is going to be. Here's where your community, your friends, your family are going to be seen and heard and
Mm.
interacted with, right? Here's where all the information you can find is going to be. It's all on a one-stop shop. So, with the term "when I was your age,"
Mhm.
we have to really start by understanding it doesn't as it doesn't apply as neatly as we might think it does, okay? We're
Mhm.
talking about a generation that is coming up in an age that doesn't know what life was like before something like social media. We're talking about
Yeah.
a generation that's growing up without an experience of not knowing what a AI is. Like, this generation's cooked. It's meeting them where they're at. You and I, we at least maybe we grew up in an age maybe before the massive boom of the internet, right?
Yeah.
And then before we knew it, MySpace became a thing. Facebook rolled around. YouTube, right? The
MySpace.
dawn of YouTube
Yeah.
is this thing.
Google, I think I'm older than Google,
So
which is
there you go.
crazy. Yeah.
So we at least have that experience. They don't. It's like
Mm.
we have an option whether or not to partake, but something like just social media and even pornography, it's become such a integral part of just the cultural zeitgeist. It's not just like an option,
Mhm.
but it's sort of like the expectation. Like
Yeah.
this is just what you
Well,
do.
look at what they watch too. I mean, they're trying to push it in there too. Soft
Sure.
porn is everywhere. So yeah, advertising, yeah.
So,
I
with
get
all
it.
that said, just being aware with all that context intact, the first thing to keep in mind is we're talking about a generation that is having an experience that we did not have,
Mhm.
okay? So, blanket statements like, "When I was your age," don't fit as neatly, and it sort of invalidates their experience. Starting there, I just as a perspective switch, I think is a good place to start. That's the first thing. Second thing, with that in mind, again, instill that culture of curiosity. Take it back to that family party conversation. What do you know? Now, the precursor being build a relationship,
Yeah.
whether it's through something like Sunday school, whether it's through something like youth group or a young adults group. Like, just take the weirdness out of the room. Sometimes nothing's more powerful than your own testimony. Just
Mhm.
to really kinda meet people where they're at and just show that health and salvation and recovery are indeed real things and very much possible. And if there's something that you can use from your own experience and your own walk to bring light and truth to that, then
Yeah.
I would certainly recommend that you share it. I think that, again, we're talking about, again, a generation in the age of fake news and artificial intelligence and where things can be easily manipulated and it's just constant stimulation where there's just a new think piece and political sway of things. Everything is just happening all at once. So it's become, even to us, increasingly difficult to know what's true and what isn't.
Mhm.
We're talking about a generation that is hungry and parched for a sense of authenticity.
Mm.
So encouraging really a community that's the motor of their car. Like what I used to tell to my students all the time and what I've shared in the Rebooted Teen program, coming from a music teacher background, I would always say, like, that moment in time where you see a singer on stage, maybe on American Idol or even in person, and they're singing a song, they're doing their thing, and all of a sudden they just start getting choked up. Yeah, they just start like breaking down crying. You ever see that before?
Mhm.
And for all intents and purposes, they're not sounding very good in that moment. Like, they're, like, straining their voice, and maybe they're forgetting their words, and they're singing notes wrong or whatever. But you also notice something else. Whenever that happens, it's not like anyone in the crowd is just like, "Boo." If anything, they're literally doing the exact opposite. They're, like,
Yeah.
standing, they're like, "Yes, that's what we're paying for. That's
Mhm.
what we want to see." The lesson being, people would rather see something real than something perfect.
Mm.
In the age of filters, in the age of, again, AI, where everything needs to be crafted and formulated in just the right way, it's something in us that is just craving for that sense of authenticity, particularly this generation. And what I try to share is that people would rather see something real than something perfect. I talk about it with clients all the time. Another example is, think about any comedy movie ever. The movie is funny enough, and then many times at the end of the movie, what do they have? The blooper reel. All these actors that are messing up their lines or whatever, and they're like laughing because of it. Why do we oftentimes enjoy that more?
Mhm.
People would rather see something real than something perfect. It's
Mm.
just this thing. So when it comes to, "Oh, I don't know if I can share about this. Oh, can I talk about this? I feel weird." The more personal something is, the more universal it actually is. If you wanna talk about something like porn, as far as feeling awkward or weird about it, I completely understand why you would feel that. But
You're not
I'm
alone.
you're
Yeah.
so not alone. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. You're so not alone. I know what it's like, and maybe you do too. Like, I know what that's like to feel like, 1, no one's gonna get it. 2, no one's gonna accept it. 3,
Mhm.
or just the feelings in that ballpark, you know?
I felt like a big hypocrite the whole time, calling
Let's talk about
myself
it.
a Christian, and I was
Yep.
still doing that, and
Mhm.
yeah, you are, like, hitting it hard, man, and I love it. I Nobody wants perfection if it's fake,
Mhm.
and yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I've been craving authenticity lately too. Just haven't wanted to be anywhere near social media because everyone's posting perfect pictures that they took who knows how long to do. And I don't do it very often, but I do notice that if I have a nice hair day and I want to take a picture, I don't usually go with just the first one. Here's a little inside note for everybody who sees my posts. I don't always go for just the first one unless it was really good, which rarely happens.
Yeah.
So we all do it. We all have our moments, but sometimes you just get overwhelmed and you need a break, a
Mhm.
mental break, a physical break from seeing it, whatever that break is.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have those moments where perfection is, I'm over it. I just
Mhm.
want someone to be real with me. When you go to church and someone says, "Hey, how are you?" And you just say, "Oh, I'm fine," but you're not. You know,
Right.
your life is crumbling around you. It's a dumpster fire right now. But you
Yeah.
don't want to tell them that. You should, because maybe God is giving them an opportunity to help you do better. And I
Mm.
think that's where church has a lot of problems, the church body, not the building
Right.
church.
Right. Right.
But we like to mask the bad things that are going on around us, our
Mhm.
imperfections, our negative emotions. We don't want to share those with people because we don't want to be judged, or we don't want people to think that we're a bad Christian. And we that's where we can take your dialogue and we can say, "Well, why don't we want people to know that? Maybe
Mhm.
you are actually doing something that is that bad that you don't want people to know, in which case you should repent for that and work through it.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just putting those on yourself. Maybe Satan's messing with you and making you feel like you have to be isolated."
And that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
any type of, you'll notice that, like, sin, at the root of every vice resides pride.
Mm,
Notice that?
mhm.
It's
Yep.
like, "Oh, I can stop anytime I want. Oh, no one needs to know.
I used to
Figure it
say
out
that.
yourself." You know what I mean?
And I could. It was funny. I was like a binge porner. I don't
Mhm.
even think that's a word, but that's what it was, like a binge drinker. They might be able to go for months not doing it, and then they'll just have, like, one time where it's like, "Woo," they just go hard.
Right.
That's what I used to do with my addiction.
Yep.
Sometimes it would last for a month, and then I'd be fine for a month
Yeah.
or for, like, 2 weeks, and then maybe it would come back. Like, you
Right.
just never knew when it was going to rear its ugly head and for how long.
Mhm.
But, yeah, that's what I thought of when you said that. Continue.
No, no, no. So, but bringing it back to what can the church do? I mean, of course, in an ideal, perfect world, yes, conversation is key because, sin thrives in isolation,
Mhm.
right? It's easier to have the enemy help you out when you're kind of keeping yourself in the dark, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
But, again, regarding it's really important for me to articulate as often as I can, as soon as you think, like I said, man, no one's gonna get this, no one's gonna hear me, no one's gonna accept me, whatever, whatever. Man, this is where coaching comes into play. This is where, therapy comes into play. This is where, going to confession comes into play, getting it off of your chest and speaking to someone who is sworn to keep your stuff a secret.
Mhm.
Like just practicing that sense of expression. There's this concept that I would share with clients too, where the opposite of depression isn't happiness. The opposite of depression is expression.
Hmm.
Think about it. It's literally just like this physical state of just, I don't want to do anything. It's this desperate height of just apathy.
Mhm.
You know, it's this complete ennui and just unwillingness to engage with anyone or anything, let alone yourself. You know, it's like
Yeah.
this, I'm just gonna crawl into a corner and just die here.
Yeah.
That's kinda what depression is like, you know, you kind of
Mhm.
turtle into a shell, but when you finally, release that, express that, there's depression and then there's expression. You don't have to
Yeah.
do it all at once. This is where having a structure and a system, like a program, can help. But just the simple act of just saying it. Just start small. You don't have to start with a big declaration. You don't have to do everything over the top, you know? You don't have to come to God with a grand gesture. He already knows your heart, you know? Just
Yeah.
start simple, right?
Yeah.
So community is key. It can be medicinal. It can be a step in that direction, in that healthy direction, you know? It's again, when 2 or more are gathered, there you are in the midst of us, and we're gonna walk in that through choosing community over isolation. I know it can feel awkward, and I know it can feel difficult because it makes it real. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, it's just like, "Oh, other people are involved." The moment we start telling ourselves, "Oh, I don't wanna be that guy or that girl with all the problems. I don't wanna burden them with my stuff," right? Like, I don't wanna jump on 'em, right?
Yeah.
It's and I understand that too, and I appreciate, wanting to be, mindful and everything, but I'm telling you, you said you bottled up anger a lot. I
Yeah.
am completely I feel you, literally, like, I used
Mhm.
to do the same exact thing. It's like anger was this unacceptable thing. It's like, if I'm
Yeah.
feeling angry, oh, then I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing the whole picture. I'm not considering someone else's feelings or whatever.
Yeah.
When just I'll be honest, sometimes that patterns comes around in my day to day. I had a fairly vulnerable conversation just a couple weeks ago with my brother where I noticed that there was like a lot of stuff that I had just been kind of holding on to. And when I finally just said
Yeah.
it, again, the opposite of depression isn't just happiness and I got a smile on my face. It's expression. It's a release. It's like God's not after our happiness, he's after our joy. The Lord's my shepherd, I shall not want. Like, I want to, maintain this very calculated, very filtered, very strategic exterior so nobody can know the real me when that's the thing that your Savior is after. You
Yeah.
know, that's the thing he wants. And the more bricks we put up, the more we make it hard for ourselves to experience that connection for ooh, I'm getting emotional. The more, like, when we thrive.
Let it out. Let it out,
Ooh, let's
Chris.
do it, let's do it. But that's we do it to ourselves, and I just want to encourage anybody out there, community, like a healthy community that has made it clear, and this is where the church can do better. We are here to not shame you. We're gonna talk about sin, which in archery terms is simply missing the mark. We're all sinners in need of a savior. We've all messed up. Join the club.
Mhm. Yep.
Jesus literally said, like, "This isn't a hospital for the healthy, it's a hospital for the sick."
Yep.
Look around, like, we're all experiencing the human condition, you ain't alone, but we're here to realign ourselves with, why we're here and that sense of purpose and connection. So, yeah, I really think that to bring it back to the original leg of this part of the conversation, if we're making that the hook, I think we're gonna catch a lot more fish that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely agree. Uh, I just
Sorry, I'm preaching. I don't
No, I love it. I was thinking about it. I was like, "Has he ever thought about becoming a youth pastor?"
You know, I yeah.
You should. You've got the look.
I mean, okay, can I be completely honest? This shirt
Yes.
is actually from my church, and
That's awesome.
okay, so I'm a worship leader as well, like, I play in
Mhm.
the music ministry and stuff, and I literally this is so embarrassing, but I got this jacket that I just so happen to be wearing. I think I got it off of, like, Temu or something, I don't even but you know what? I literally searched up, like, what was it? Like music, like pastor outfit. And this was, like, one of
That's
the first things I was like,
hilarious.
"Yo, that jack is fly." So, I and that
It's a
whole
calling. It's a calling.
well, you might be onto something. You might be on
Well, I just you have such a way with words, with passion, you're honest, you're vulnerable, you're what we need in a lot of youth groups now.
Thank you.
There's so many teens who are suffering with all this because their parents don't know how to handle this situation. They don't wanna go to their parents because they're either old school or they're not approachable with it. They need people that they can rely on, that they can trust, like you said, a community of people who are going to care about them and what they're going through and aren't
Mhm.
gonna make them feel that shame. And I think sadly, a lot of parents, maybe not intentionally, are coming off as people that aren't approachable for these things. My oldest right now is a prodigal child, and she talks about a lot of different things. At one point, she thought she was trans, and sometimes she goes back into that, sometimes she doesn't.
Mhm.
And I have loved her unconditionally through that, which if you had asked me back in high school years if was going to have a child who was going to talk about this at this age, how would I have reacted? It's
Right.
completely different from how I am actually reacting.
Totally,
But
totally.
it's because I've learned from my own how I did things, how my parents did things when I was a prodigal child. I didn't want to do what they did because what they did, or at least my mom, I love her to death and she's my biggest supporter for
Love
everything and always has been. Even when I was going through my bad seasons, I intentionally went out of my way to tell her the wrong things I was doing because I
mhm,
wanted to see her squirm because I knew she would. And I told myself, I can't be like that because my oldest is very headstrong and she will do the opposite of what I tell her to do. So I don't tell her to do things anymore. One, she's already an adult. So it's like there's so much I cannot tell her
right.
anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just don't react to the stuff anymore. And
Mm,
when my son asks me things he's heard at school, I don't react anymore. I have to take a step back sometimes and it's like, how do I answer this? And then my youngest 2, they're very curious as well. I'm like, "God, what are you doing to me?" All 5 of my kids are very outspoken, they're very honest, they're very talkative, friendly, like, they just have questions. I'm like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" I'm not any of that. I do have questions, but I have to get over myself, and we as parents have to get over ourselves and realize we are raising the next generation, and that's why our children need to have people they feel safe with when we're still figuring things out as parents, so
mm,
that they're not left without options,
right.
but that they have an option. Okay, I know my parents are gonna be weird if I talk to them about this, but I
Uh-huh.
have Chris to talk to, or I have my youth pastor, my older mature friend from church, a family friend, a grandparent, like whatever it is, they need to have that connection to somebody
Mhm.
when their parents aren't it. And that's what I tell my kids as well. I was like, if you don't feel like you can talk to me about it, you talk to your dad. If you don't
Mm,
feel that you can talk about this, find someone from church. If you don't have anyone at church, you need to find somebody that you can trust to talk to if you don't feel you can come to me. But I always let them know you can come to me. I'm not going to make you feel weird about anything.
mm,
But yeah, you just have this openness about you that I think a lot of teens would flock to. So you
that's
should
really cool.
really take a look at becoming a youth pastor.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Well, Chris, this has been absolutely encouraging, edifying. And again, if you are not taking notes, you better come back and listen to this again and take some notes because there were some good nuggets here that you can take into your life and run with. If they want to get in touch with you, maybe they want to get some coaching from you or they just wanna thank you for this conversation, how can they do that?
Yeah, totally. So, for anyone who is listening and curious about all the stuff we've been talking about and what it actually looks like when put into practice, you can visit rebootedteen.com, and that's where you'll find the opportunity to access the Rebooted Teen Parent Program, which is completely free. It's my gift to you, just a series of modules as far as how to get started in a practical way with all this stuff that you almost see me crying about. And how to start applying it to your own situation and kind of starting to, be that kind of open place for your child or children. And definitely check that out. Plenty of samples at Rebooted Teen on Instagram. But if you feel that the Rebooted Teen program is the right move for your child or children, let's definitely talk. There's a Facebook community through the parent program where other parents and caregivers and guardians are trading notes and holding each other accountable and sharing stories and sharing wins. It's a cool, encouraging atmosphere. So feel free to check that out. It was mentioned a few times, but if you take anything away from this conversation, um, we're talking about a generation that once again is yearning for, yes, that sense of authenticity, but just knowing that they're seen, that they're heard, and that, they're going to be okay. Sex is real, porn is real, but, my God is real as well. While this particular program, you don't necessarily have to be a believer to join, but, all we want to do is share the sense of that help is real, that hope is real, and again, we're not after putting the problem on a pedestal, we're here to shine a spotlight on the solution. We're gonna introduce different ways of how to increase that sense of awareness and ultimately how to turn that awareness into action so that your child over time can learn how to advocate for themselves. All the best athletes in the world are, amazing at what they do, but all those athletes have all had coaches. So it
Yeah.
would be my honor to be that coach. And thank you very much for the platform. I've done a couple of these podcast episodes now, but I really appreciate you giving me the space. I think this was a really fruitful talk and it was awesome. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for everything. I have enjoyed this so much. Thank you again, Chris, for coming on and talking with me.
Absolutely.
Boom! Mic drop episode. I love talking about this subject. It is so needed, especially in this culture today. Chris and I got this awkward porn and sex ball rolling for you. You're welcome, by the way. Now it's your turn to keep it going for your family. Talk with your kids. Be aware of your own struggles and those of your children. And be prepared and equipped for the day they ask you a tough question or you catch them in a compromising situation with love, grace, and wisdom on how to handle it. If this conversation rocked you, please leave me a review and let others know how much it impacted you. And if you are feeling tension right now because you struggle with porn or sex addiction, don't leave here feeling full of guilt and shame. That's not of God. He is calling you to a better life. Please join the Retrain Your Brain series to find the healing you need to be your whole healthy self, one episode at a time. The links to leave a review and the Retrain Your Brain series are in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me today. I look forward to our next conversation.